Let's cut the nonsense. The fastest way to make a woman obsessed with you is to disappear. Not ghost her, not hate her, just pull back so hard she starts questioning her own worth. It's brutal, it's effective, and most men are too scared to do it. Most guys have been brainwashed, told to be available, to communicate more, to be the emotional sponge that soaks up her moods, her needs, her indecision. But here's the truth nobody tells you. The more she knows you're always there, the less she values your presence. We live in a world where women are bombarded with validation, likes, texts, heart emojis, compliments she forgot 2 seconds after reading. So when you try to impress her the same way every other man does, you disappear into digital noise. But the man who knows how to pull away strategically, he becomes unforgettable. Today, we're breaking down the art and dark psychology of ignoring a woman, why it works, how to do it right, and how it flips attraction in your favor. Let's get into it. 1. Why ignoring a woman works. Let's be honest. Most men think that giving more time, more attention, and more validation is the way to win a woman's affection. That belief is precisely what keeps them stuck in a cycle of over-investing and under-receiving. But here's the harsh truth. Ignoring a woman, when done with intention and emotional control, is one of the most powerful psychological triggers in attraction. Not because it's manipulative, but because it works with her instincts, not against them. Women are not drawn to what's overly available. Human psychology is wired to crave what's uncertain, what's rare, what's just out of reach. When you're constantly texting her, complimenting her, and trying to win her over, you make yourself predictable. Predictability kills intrigue. It tells her, I've got him. There's nothing left to uncover. In contrast, when you pull back, when you go silent, stop reacting, stop chasing, something shifts in her mind. You interrupt her expectations. You introduce emotional tension. And it's that tension that sparks curiosity, anxiety, and yes, desire. She starts asking questions she wasn't asking before. Why isn't he texting me? Did he lose interest? Was I not enough? That internal loop of doubt begins to form, not because you insulted her or played games, but because you removed your energy. You created a vacuum where your constant presence used to be. And humans don't like vacuums. We try to fill them. The key to making this work is intention. Ignoring her isn't about punishment. It's not revenge or cold indifference. It's about discipline. You're not ignoring her to make her feel bad. You're doing it to make her feel your value. By feeling your absence, you're reminding her that your attention is not free and that respect and effort are a two-way street. However, there's a crucial caveat. This only works if you've already demonstrated value. If you've been clingy, needy, or emotionally erratic, then pulling back might come across as weakness or insecurity. The woman won't feel compelled to chase. She'll feel relieved that you're gone. That's why you must start from a position of self-worth. When a man who values himself pulls back, it's felt differently. It creates that deep, unconscious pull. She notices, she obsesses, she wonders, and that's when the game flips. You go from chasing her to being the mystery she wants to decode. You stop being another guy seeking her validation and become the man she silently competes to win. Ignore her, not to hurt her, but to shift the power dynamic. Let her feel that silence. Let her realize what she lost when she had your attention and didn't value it. That's the art and the dark psychology of doing less to create more. 2. Pulling back to regain control. There's a moment in nearly every man's relationship or situationship where he senses the shift. She's colder. Her replies are delayed. The spark feels dim. And most men do what they were programmed to do: panic. They try harder. They double text. They over-explain. They beg, even if subtly. And in doing so, they hand over all their emotional power. But here's where the shift begins. When you feel her pulling away, you don't chase. You pull back. That move alone can save your dignity and flip the emotional script. Pulling back is not weakness. It's not passive aggression. It's not giving up. It's control. It's strategic. It's the moment when you say, I see what's happening, and I refuse to be dragged down by it. Instead of scrambling for her attention, you reclaim your center. Most women don't respond to logic. They respond to energy. When your energy is needy, desperate, and clingy, it doesn't matter how perfect your words are. She'll sense the imbalance and instinctively retreat. But when your energy says, I'm calm, composed, and fine either way, her inner world gets disrupted. Because now she's uncertain, by pulling back, you're making a statement. Not with words, but with absence. You're showing that you're not emotionally dependent on her validation, that you're not begging to stay. You've stopped trying to force connection and instead stepped back to protect your peace. This detachment does two things. One, it gives her space to reflect. If she has genuine interest, she'll notice your distance. She'll feel the emotional drop and begin questioning her own actions. Two, it gives you clarity. You get to observe her behavior without being caught in a web of emotional reactions. You can ask yourself, is she really worth your energy? Is she adding value or just draining it? But make no mistake, this isn't about ghosting. It's not about silent treatment. It's a quiet shift. You stop initiating. You stop overextending. You redirect your energy back into your own life, into your health, purpose, and self-growth. And the beauty, she will notice. She might not show it right away, but she'll feel it. And if she truly values you, she'll come forward. Not because you begged, but because she felt the loss. Pulling back isn't a tactic. It's a mindset. It's the art of knowing your worth so deeply that you never beg to be chosen. And when that mindset becomes your standard, the whole dynamic shifts in your favor. 3. The shift in power. Power in relationships is rarely about volume, status, or control. It's about emotional leverage. It's about who needs who more. And in most modern dynamics, men unknowingly give that power away the moment they start chasing too hard. Here's the truth. The person who's more emotionally invested too early is the one who ends up with less influence. And for men, that's usually the result of overgiving, over-explaining, and over-pursuing. You think your consistency will be rewarded, but instead it's used to measure how far she can pull back without losing you. But when you stop, when you withdraw, when you ignore strategically, that power begins to shift. Suddenly she's not in control of the rhythm. You are. She expects that morning text. It doesn't come. She's used to seeing you view her story. You go dark. She anticipates validation, but silence greets her instead. And silence is louder than words. When a woman senses that she no longer holds your emotional attention, two things happen. 1, she starts reflecting. Did I do something wrong? 2, she starts investing, even subtly. A like, a message, a question about something random. These are not accidents. They're feelers, probes to test if she still holds the power. But now you don't hand it back. The shift in power doesn't mean you become cold or distant out of anger. It means you stay emotionally centered. You stop reacting. You stop trying to steer the relationship through over-effort. And because of that, she now has to match your energy. This shift creates balance. Where once she led and you followed, now you walk at your own pace. She adjusts. She adapts. She starts to see you not as someone to control, but as someone to earn. And that shift, from freely available to emotionally grounded, is what separates average men from high-value ones. 4. The power of mystery. One of the most intoxicating forces in attraction is mystery. In a world where oversharing is common and attention is cheap, the man who holds something back becomes rare and irresistible. When you ignore a woman in the right way, you introduce mystery. And mystery breeds fascination. Why? Because human psychology is wired to seek answers. When something feels unresolved or unfinished, our brains latch onto it. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to remember uncompleted tasks better than completed ones. When you stop giving her constant attention, her brain labels you as unfinished business. You become a puzzle. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about intentional restraint. You don't tell her everything. You don't react to every message. You don't always say yes. You let her wonder, guess, and interpret. That uncertainty creates emotional investment. Mystery works because it triggers imagination. When she doesn't know what you're doing or how you feel, she starts to fill in the blanks, and the images she paints in her mind are often far more powerful than anything you could say. She starts projecting value onto you, not because you told her, but because you gave her the space to imagine it. Men who lack mystery are easily discarded. They overshare, overpursue, and put all their cards on the table. There's no tension, no discovery, no challenge. Women lose interest not because those men are bad, but because they're fully known, and what's fully known becomes emotionally safe, but not sexually compelling. Mystery, on the other hand, keeps her emotionally on edge, not in a cruel way, but in a way that sparks adrenaline and intrigue. She starts talking about you to her friends. She stalks your social media. She reads between your texts, and that subtle obsession builds desire. By being a little unpredictable, a little unavailable, a little vague, you become more than just another guy. You become an idea, an experience. And ideas are harder to let go of than people. That's the magic of mystery. It doesn't demand attention. It earns it, silently, powerfully, irresistibly. 5. Detachment, the ultimate attraction. Trigger. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's about not clinging. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you don't need to force anything that's meant for you. And in the psychological game of attraction, detachment is often the most magnetic trait a man can have. Most men operate from a place of fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. That fear drives their behaviors, over-texting, over-explaining, over-investing. But all of those actions scream one thing: insecurity. And nothing repels attraction faster than insecurity disguised as effort. A detached man doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't try to impress. He doesn't try to control outcomes. Why? Because he knows his value isn't tied to a woman's approval. He moves with purpose, not desperation. And ironically, that very mindset makes women chase. Detachment creates space. Space for a woman to miss you, to think, to question. When you're not constantly present in her orbit, she starts to feel the difference. She compares your absence to the presence of other men who are too eager, too available, too easy. And suddenly, you stand out. But make no mistake, detachment is not apathy. You can be emotionally available and still be detached. It means you care, but not at the expense of your dignity. It means you're open, but not exposed. It means you're connected, but not dependent. The power of detachment is that it puts the ball in her court without needing to say a word. It communicates, I'm here because I choose to be, not because I need to be. That energy is rare, and rare energy is always attractive. In a world full of men who give too much too soon, the man who remains centered in his detachment becomes a psychological challenge, a mystery, a test. And women don't forget the man who makes them work emotionally. That's the power of detachment, calm, composed, and devastatingly effective. 6. Scarcity, the economics of desire. In economics, scarcity increases value. In human relationships, it's no different. What's rare is prized. What's abundant is overlooked. When you ignore a woman, not from bitterness, but from self-respect, you create scarcity. And that scarcity breeds desire. Too many men give too much too easily. They flood her inbox. They always say yes. They're always available. And in doing so, they devalue their own presence. She doesn't need to earn their time or energy. It's just there. Constantly, predictably, cheaply. But when you become scarce, when your time, your presence, your responses become less frequent and more deliberate, she starts to perceive you differently. You become valuable. Not because you told her so, but because you showed her. Scarcity shifts the frame. She no longer sees you as someone trying to win her over. She sees you as someone who knows he's already a prize. And that subtle shift triggers a powerful response: competitiveness. She starts to want your attention not because you gave it, but because you withheld it. This doesn't mean disappearing without cause. It means making her earn your time the same way you've been expected to earn hers. It's about quality over quantity, depth over volume, substance over access. And here's the twist. When she finally gets your attention, it feels like a win, like an achievement, because it wasn't guaranteed, it wasn't handed out, it had to be earned. And humans always value what they work for more than what they're given freely. Scarcity, when combined with presence, creates irresistible value. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about being hard to get, because you know you're worth more than constant availability. 7. When silence speaks louder. There comes a point in every dynamic where words lose their power, where explanations no longer move her, where conversations feel like negotiations. That's when you must let silence do the talking. Silence is unnerving. It creates a void, and that void forces reflection. When you stop responding, stop explaining, stop justifying, she's left with her own thoughts, and often that silence echoes louder than any argument or emotional plea. Men often fear silence because it feels like disconnection, but it's actually a tool of emotional realignment. It's where clarity is born, not just for her, but for you. Because in silence the masks drop, the distractions fade, and what remains is truth. If she truly cares, silence will disturb her. It will poke at her ego. It will create tension. She'll wonder, reflect, perhaps even regret. And that's the space where realignment happens. That's where feelings can shift, not from pressure, but from internal realization. But silence isn't passive. It's deliberate. It means you've stopped chasing and started observing. You're no longer reacting. You're deciding. Deciding if this dynamic even deserves your energy anymore. And that shift, from trying to win her back to questioning if she's worthy of you, is where your power is reborn. Let silence speak. Let it echo. Let it do what your words couldn't. Because sometimes, the loudest message you can send is no message at all. 8. How ignoring creates emotional intrigue. Attraction isn't built through constant contact. It's built through emotional spikes, highs and lows, tension and release, uncertainty and clarity. Ignoring a woman at the right time introduces emotional intrigue, the unpredictable spark that keeps her thinking, wanting, wondering. When a woman is sure of you, she relaxes. When she's unsure, she invests. That's the paradox. The human brain pays more attention to what it can't fully predict. So when you pull back, go quiet, or seem slightly out of reach, her curiosity ignites. She starts creating stories in her mind about where you are, what you're doing, how you feel. That narrative building is emotional engagement. It's what keeps her emotionally hooked, even if she won't admit it. Ignoring her, strategically, breaks patterns. It interrupts the emotional routine. And pattern interruption is the birthplace of intrigue. But it must come from power, not pettiness. You're not ignoring her to hurt her or manipulate. You're doing it to protect your energy and let her feel your value. It's not about cruelty. It's about clarity. Showing that you're not endlessly available, that your time must be earned. This creates contrast. And contrast is what creates memory. When she thinks of you, she doesn't remember just the words. She remembers how your silence made her feel. That's emotional intrigue, the secret ingredient most men overlook. 9. Emotional discipline, the real power move. At the core of ignoring a woman effectively lies one trait: emotional discipline. Not coldness, not arrogance, but the ability to regulate your own emotions when everything inside you wants to reach out, chase, or fix the situation. Emotional discipline is what keeps your text unsent. It's what stops you from watching her story. It's what keeps you grounded when you see her pulling away and your instincts scream to do something. This is the real test. Can you sit in that discomfort? Can you trust that your silence is more powerful than your explanation? That your withdrawal is more impactful than your chase? Men who master emotional discipline rise above reactive behavior. They stop being emotionally tossed around by every signal she gives. They become centered, unshakable, calm. And that calmness is magnetic. Women are deeply affected by emotionally grounded men. Because such men are rare. Most react, few regulate. most chase, few observe, most fold under pressure, few rise above it. When you have emotional discipline, you don't need validation. You choose connection, not cling to it. You lead with strength, not fear. And that's the kind of energy that shifts the entire dynamic. Ignoring a woman is not about playing games. It's about playing the long game, where your emotions don't control you, your silence carries meaning, and your presence becomes a reward, not a given. That's the essence of power in the modern dating world. Not louder, just quieter, more disciplined, and infinitely more effective. 10. Conclusion. Doing less to win more. The modern dating world is flooded with noise, constant messages, instant gratification, and desperate validation. Most men, without realizing it, get swept into this current. They try harder, give more, and express endlessly, believing that affection is something to be earned through effort alone. But true attraction doesn't work that way. What this guide reveals, across all 9 insights, is a fundamental truth. Psychological power comes from restraint, from doing less but with intention, from acting not out of fear but out of self-worth. Ignoring a woman, pulling back, creating scarcity, remaining detached, these aren't tricks. They're reflections of a man who values himself more than he fears losing someone else. When you stop chasing, you allow her to feel your absence. When you stop explaining, you let her question her own behavior. When you introduce silence, you invite reflection. And when you stand still instead of reaching, you force her to move toward you. This isn't about manipulation, it's about emotional calibration. Because a man who is emotionally disciplined, who doesn't fold under pressure, who doesn't beg to be chosen, becomes rare. And in a world where most men chase, the man who pulls back becomes the one she chases. It's not a game, it's a shift in mindset. When you master this art, the art of strategic silence, controlled distance, and authentic detachment, you no longer seek validation, you attract it, not by what you say, but by what you don't say, not by your presence, but by the weight of your absence. So remember, your time is value, your energy is currency, your attention is not free. The man who learns to withhold wisely becomes unforgettable, not because he tried harder, but because he did less and meant more.